About the model itself, I'm curious on how do you help the franchisees training, supporting their caregivers? Because I would imagine one of the challenges that the folks who they're calling on, your patients or your clients, members, they might not be easy. This is maybe the first go around for them, where now somebody's a stranger's coming into their home to help them. How do we help transition that caregiver into that relationship and helping those folks?
Clients will come on, it's one of two ways. When you get a lead, we'll call it. When we get a lead, they're either like, I need someone tomorrow because mom's getting discharged from rehab, like Josh said, immediately, or they're just maybe kicking tires. Either way, they don't want to have to use us. We're a service that no one wants. We're not selling, nice cars or luxury watches, or people
Right.
aren't excited to pay for our services, and so we embrace that. Frank, we say, look, we understand this isn't something that you want. I mean, we get reimbursement from the VA, for example, and those people don't want care either, and it's already being paid for through the VA,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that tells you, people don't enjoy losing their independence. The children don't like to have to get involved because dad's lost his independence, and so we just embrace that. We're here because you need us, not because you want us. But one way that we kind of ease into starting some home care services is our first face-to-face contact is going to be with one of our registered nurses. So the registered nurse is going to really make them feel good. She's going to be a shoulder to cry on. Someone's going to listen to their story, but also maybe firmly make recommendations. Sometimes people will call us and dad's fallen 4 times in the last quarter, right? And the last time caused a hip fracture. Now he's in the hospital, and now we need help. Everything's changed. So, a lot of times as a spouse or as children of someone who's aging, you kind of just still see your loved one as 30, 40 years old, and not as who they are now. So
Right.
having that third party that comes in and has the the personality to you kind of ease them into this and say it's okay. Maybe they'll also say, this isn't uncommon. We're dealing with this all the time. This is a normal thing. And the nurse is then going to go home and kind of manage that case. They're not going to do the day-to-day care like a caregiver would and will, but they're there to call upon if that family has inevitable health changes, or if things change, or even if maybe they have a personality conflict with one of the caregivers. The nurse is there to listen. We're catching families at a tough time in their
Yeah.
life. So we're not always getting people at their most positive moment, right? And so a lot of times when people maybe have a concern as they go through the process of getting care, really the concern is more so they just want to have someone to listen to them. And so that's kind of what we will offer. It's kind of a differentiator in our space, Frank, where you kind of have that RN managing the case, and also the caregivers reporting to that RN. So it's the liaison between the family and the caregiver.
So is the franchisee hiring the RN?
Correct. The,
Is
the franchisee would have an RN locally. There's a couple different ways that can be done. A lot of our franchise owners, there's a nurse in the mix, right?
Mhm.
Typically, it's a husband maybe has a sales and marketing background, and the wife has a nursing background. So that's a great candidate for us if anyone's listening out there. But it's definitely not necessary. In our Maryland office, we have like 8 RNs, and they're all employees. So you can do it either way. But yes, these would be RNs that the franchise owner would identify. They're typically part-time RNs.
Mhm.
So maybe they worked 10 years in a hospital and they got burnt out from doing 12-hour shifts. And now they have small children at home. They want to have flexibility. So RNs a lot of times, Frank, aren't able to work remotely, set their own schedule, right, and even work part-time. So we give them that option. It's not for every nurse, of course, but there are a lot of nurses out there that fit our profile.
Okay. Hey, Josh, what about you? Who is your ideal franchise owner?
Typically I have two avatars that we look at. The first would kind of be the example that Chad just gave, where the franchisee is going to be the face of the business in the community. They're in that sales marketing role. Their job primarily is to go out and establish a presence in the community. So they're going to our different referral partners to generate those relationships. They're doing the senior aging expo. They're going to the networking groups like we talked about, and kind of hobnobbing with their counterparts at the different senior care facilities. If that's our ideal person, I think it lends a lot of benefit to the franchise when it's the owner who is out as the face of the business in the community. But we realize that that's not everybody. And so we also have a path where if the franchisee is more like myself and maybe kind of geared more for the administrative part, handling the caregiver recruiting, doing the HR role, working on the schedule, then certainly, we've got a path where they can hire a sales and marketing person to be out there in the community. And that we call him an administrative Andy. We got sales Sally and administrative Andy to be in the office, kind of overseeing what's taking place. But those would be the two main roles that we look for.
Okay. Well, what's the investment range of the franchise, and what does the territory look like?
Yes, the investment range is, please don't quote me on this, but somewhere between about 112 and 200,000. The territories are made up of a number of seniors over 65. So at least 40,000 seniors over 65 would be a typical territory size.
Wow, that's enormous. That gives them a lot of runway to be able to have a successful business.
Yep, we got a lot of great territories open. So the ability to offer 2-3 packs, or maybe down the road they might want to add additional territory. It's a kind of business where you could easily expand that reach. It's kind of tough to have a humongous area early, but maybe if you start here and expand out, you really only need one home office. Sometimes you don't even need an office, depending on licensing requirements. But you can, because it's a service, because you're hiring caregivers maybe from all over the place, you can get more clients from all over the place as well.
What's your general direction on, I'm a franchisee, I hire the RN. How many caregivers am I generally starting out with, you think?
When a franchisee launches with us, they get 3 guides after they've gone through our entire training, which helps them get the business launched. They're called our launch guides. So we've got a launch guide for sales and marketing. We've got a launch guide for scheduling. We've got a launch guide for hiring and recruiting. And so in that launch guide for recruiting, we're going to walk them through the first 12 months of the business. And we break it down on a week-by-week basis. So this is where you need to go to look for caregivers. This is how many conversations you need to have. This is how many interviews you need to conduct. This is how many caregivers you need to hire. And so it helps them with that ramp period to ensure that they're hiring based on our model at the rate that we think that they need to in order to grow the business. At the end of the first year, we look for anywhere from 35 to 70 caregivers to have been hired and incorporated into the system. That could go much quicker, or it could go much slower, kind of based on what the payer mix and the client type of that local franchise is. Certainly based on our hiring model, we tend to want people to err on the side of overhiring rather than underhiring. But yeah, we walk them through exactly what to do on a week by week basis as they get off the ground.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.